Say hello, Ben. Can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi, everyone. Okay, welcome to FVM Talk episode 2 about opportunity and conflict for value. Say hello, Ben. Say hello, Becca.
Can you turn the music down? It's really hard to hear, sorry.
Okay, nice to see you. Okay, let's restart.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, and thank you everybody for joining us today. I'll just quickly introduce myself and today's session, and then I will hand over for a bit of discussion with Ben, but just a few housekeeping things first. Welcome to everyone who's joined us on Zoom, and also I know we're streaming live on Facebook as well, so welcome to everybody on Facebook. Today's session is due to last about 45 minutes. The first 20 to 30 minutes is going to be Ben and I having a little bit of conversation about the principles of social value, the situation that we're seeing in the world with COVID, and how we believe that social value can provide the solutions to tackle some of the issues that we're facing. So we're going to have a really great discussion, and then the last 15 minutes or so is going to be an opportunity for you guys to ask questions to Ben and myself about anything to do with social value, really. So please do pop any questions that you have in the chat. I know someone from the team in Thailand is also going to be monitoring the conversations on Facebook Live as well. So please do pass any questions that you have on to them. But just to give some context to who I am, I'm Rebecca Harvey. I'm the Membership and Networks Manager at Social Value International. I'm going to be moderating the discussion today, and I'm really pleased to have our CEO, Ben Carpenter, who's here as well. So Ben, do you want to just say hi quickly? Great, thanks, Ben. Well, we'll get started. I know people are still coming in, but we've got quite a big discussion today. So I'll get started with some quick questions. So first of all, Ben, you've been part of Social Value International for quite some time now. What changes have you seen during this time?
Hi, Becca, and hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to have this chat. I have been here for quite a long time now. It's actually 2013 when I started working for SBI. Back then, of course, we weren't called Social Value International, we were called the SRI Network, Social Return Investment Network. So yeah, just before my first daughter was born, coming up to 8 years now. So yeah, it feels like quite a long time. And what are the changes that I've seen during this time? Well, it has been an evolution and a change, quite a big change. I think it's fair to say when I started the work, social return investment, the network was still quite a niche subject, and it was quite a small network. We had pockets of people around the world, and I think it was mainly orientated towards non-profits. So it was mainly sort of social return investment for charities or social enterprises. We did have some interaction with the public sector, with government. Of course, the UK government funded the Guide to Social Return Investment. And there was some private sector interest in the network, but really, I think back then the private sector was still focusing on CSR, corporate social responsibility, and still really not fully embracing sustainability and sort of shared value as they are now. And I think that's changed a lot since 2013, and by 2018, you know, when I became CEO of Social Value International, it was much more balanced across, you know, civil society, public sector and private sector. And I think that's probably due to more policies that governments have put in place around value. You know, in the UK, we've had the Social Value Act, but more broadly across the world, governments are starting to think about a broader definition of value. And of course, businesses are increasingly recognizing that they need to do more about sustainability and social and environmental value more as a whole. So I think it's changed quite a lot. And I suppose what else has changed? Sorry, there's a lot to cover back. This is a big question you've asked me to unpack. But in terms of like that's who is interested in our work, but how our work's evolved has been quite interesting as well. We merged, for example, in 2015 with the Social Impact Analysts Association, because they were also trying to develop a profession globally with networks in different countries. So we came together in 2015 and formed Social Value International and Social Value UK and various other chapters around the world, which led us to kind of collaborate more with other institutions like the OECD, the European Commission, World Economic Forum. And I think sort of more collaboration happened through our engagement with the impact management projects, in the last sort of 3 or 4 years. Our status as a standard setter has risen, and we're now working closely with UNDP and other global standard setters. So yeah, we've gone from being niche to very much mainstream. And I think 2019, when we had the conference in Social Value Matters conference in Taiwan, that was a realization moment that we really have gone mainstream, and we've got a growing network now with people from sort of mainstream finance and business really serious about our mission of changing the way the world accounts for value.
Definitely. Well, I joined in 2018, so not quite as long as you, but it's been best part of 3 years now since I've joined, and since then, everything that you said, I've seen it happen so much. I think I joined at a really exciting time in 2018, where we seem to be reaching a bit of a tipping point of momentum. But obviously, it's been a bit of a interesting time over the last 3 years as well, particularly with the COVID-19 pandemic over the last 18 months. And I was just wondering if you could sort of reflect on how you feel that the COVID-19 pandemic has shaped and evolved our movement, and also grown the engagement that people have had within social value.
Yeah, definitely. You did join at an interesting time back then. Things were starting to accelerate then, and I think COVID, well, it's just been such a challenging time for everyone. That's the first thing to say. And everything's been disruptive, the way we work, individually, together, our mission, what's important in life. It's just crazy. And it was Social Value Thailand that introduced me to the VUCA acronym that stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And I think that does sum up the world we're living in. And it has, I think, affected us in some ways in a good way, because this VUCA world and COVID has placed more emphasis on our well-being, people's well-being and the planet's well-being, and inequality more broadly. We can see the effects COVID are happening on inequality. It's widening inequality, and of course well-being and inequality is what we're here to talk about, really. In changing the way the world accounts for value, our aim is always to reduce inequality and improve well-being through accounting for a broader definition of value. So more attention really on those things has helped our organization, our work, become even more important than ever. And of course, people are accelerating the way they're changing, the way they make decisions. This is happening so quickly. Businesses need to be more resilient to change, and governments want to sort of build back better, I suppose. So it's been really interesting the last 18 months to kind of see how our mission has become even more relevant than ever.
Definitely, and it certainly has been. And I think it's that difficult balance, isn't it, between having the hope of what could come out of this, but also reflecting that it has been, as you said, such a volatile and uncertain time for so many people. But we all are very aware, I think, of the very negative implications that COVID's had on a global, but I want to try and keep it positive. So I was just wondering if you could share some of the trends that are happening globally that give you hope.
Yeah, we know we can easily get sucked into the negativity, but you're right that there's lots of signs for optimism, and I do have hope. I must say, I think one of the things that gives me most encouragement is that there just is this general realization at the moment that things have to change. I don't think many people want to go back to how it was pre-COVID. You know, there's all this talk about build back better, and what is the new normal going to look like? And as I said, I think there's more focus on that inequality and well-being. And I just see that there's a lot of governments out there looking at this as an opportunity to start afresh, you know, set out some new policies. You know, countries that have always been good at this, like New Zealand, you know, thinking about well-being, you know, they're ramping their policies up around, but also, you know, the Biden administration in the US are really turning a new page, you know, from the Trump administration, and focusing on climate change and a new way of doing things. So that is a global trend that you have to be encouraged by. You know, you see the amount of businesses that are surviving, and those that have survived are the ones that are looking after people, that they are caring for the planet. So I think that's encouraging. And I think the big thing that I get hopeful about is the kind of the way investment is changing. You know, the flows of capital around the world. They say money makes the world go round, and it does. And Forbes have been talking about this great wealth transfer, which I think is such an important thing for us to think about, which is that the amount of wealth that's going to be transferred from people that have accumulated wealth, you know, the baby boomers that were born between 1944 and 1965, they've accumulated a lot of wealth in this kind of period, and that's all going to be transferred to a younger generation. I think 30 trillion of US dollars of assets is going to be transferred to a younger generation in the next 2 decades. And this younger generation do care about the environment. They're more aware about the harm that we're having to the environment and the social challenges we face. And I think the way that those assets and that money flows is starting to change. You know, you just look at the rise in ESG investment, ethical consumerism. There's a shift in the way that people are making decisions in where they want their money, in a pension or in a particular investment or a particular sort of organization that they buy from, that they work for. So I do think there is this shift in societal attitudes, and that can only be a good thing.
Absolutely. You've mentioned a couple of times in the sort of previous questions I've had about the role that policies potentially made in changing. You know, you said before, businesses are now taking it more seriously, maybe because of like the Social Value Act in the UK, the Biden administration, obviously with the policy that they're looking at a bit more climate change. Do you think that policy is the driving force, or do you think policy comes after? I never know which one comes first. It's a bit of a chicken and egg, and I just wanted to throw that question back to you.
Yeah, that's a good question, Becca. I think, you know, people will have their different opinions on this. My view is that policy very rarely, not all the time, but very rarely leads the way. It tends to be that, you know, innovation will come from maybe business or kind of new trends emerging, and then governments will have to kind of put policies in place to kind of support that and make it last. I mean, there are cases where government will just introduce a policy that's sort of going to radically change practice. But I think actually what normally happens is practice comes first and then government do that. But the two need to work together. I think that's the most important thing. You know, if we want to see real change, then you need to encourage those early adopters and that innovation. And then you need to encourage governments to kind of put policy to support that so that everyone can get on board with it. And particularly where, you know, what we're talking about, you know, accounting for value. Innovation in the space is actually happening quite quickly now, and you're seeing organizations do some really good stuff in terms of the information they're using to look at value in a broader definition. And I hope that governments can kind of see that and go, right, this is a fantastic opportunity, and let's put some regulation around this, and encourage not just those leaders to do it, but everyone to get on board with this transition to a different way that we account for value.
Definitely, innovation is so important, and I think that's something that the social value movement has been very good at. You know, like you said, when you joined in 2013, it was quite niche, and it definitely was innovative. So it's an exciting movement to be part of because of that innovation. So what in the movement is exciting you right now?
There's loads. How long have we got, Becca? Did you say 25 minutes?
Oh yeah, carry on.
No, I think I did have to make a list because I knew you were going to ask me this question. And I think sort of internally, you know, what Social Value International, what's exciting, there is a lot because we're doing a lot. And I should start by saying, of course, Social Value Matters 2021, the big event with Social Value Thailand in October. That's, you know, it's always exciting every year to do an international conference, and working with Thailand is so great because you've got such a fantastic team, and I know it's going to be such a great success. You know, all the work you've done so far over the years as well. It's going to be, you know, a brilliant conference. So that's great. And thanks for joining today's call, and you're obviously showing interest in it. I think I'd like to kind of point to two other things that are exciting, you know, in our work. We've got a really big announcement and introduction soon of principle number 8. So most of you will know that, you know, SVI advocate for a principles-based approach for accounting for value. We've had these 7 principles from the beginning, but introducing an 8th principle is a big deal. So that's exciting. The 8th principle. I'm liking the music. Maybe I could dance along to that. I'm not sure if you want to see my dancing. Can you still hear me over the music?
It's a little tricky. Is it possible to turn the music down, guys? I think it's the team in Thailand that's managing the music. Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much.
Well, we do have an 8th principle coming out, which is called Be Responsive. And I'm responding to the music by talking louder. And so Be Responsive is all about taking action and doing things differently, really. So that's really exciting. I suppose I have to mention, like, other really great things that are happening at the moment is collaborations we're doing, you know, with the UNDP, who are rolling out the SDG Impact Practice Standards. If you're not familiar with those, you should check those out. We'll be doing more and more stuff with the UNDP over the next 12 months, I'm sure. And I do like this focus on the Sustainable Development Goals. It's very helpful. You know, they provide a shared vision of the future, and how we can all manage our contribution to that, I think is a great movement to align to. And we've got various other projects funded by the OECD, and working with other initiatives like the Capitals Coalition and other, you know, value accounting organizations. So that's really cool. And I suppose the other thing that is really great that people should be aware of is just that for years, you know, our mission of changing the way the world accounts for value has almost seemed, you know, like a radical thought. You know, financial accounting is, everyone knows how to do that. We're not going to change it. But actually, we are seeing some big movements in the world of mainstream financial accounting. So the bodies that oversee that, like the IFRS, which is the International Financial Reporting Standards, the IASB, International Audit and Assurance Standards Board, these kind of, like, you know, what you might think is quite boring institutions that oversee accounting are doing some and taking steps towards integrating sustainability or non-financial information into mainstream financial accounting. So suddenly, the mission to change the way the world accounts for value seems, you know, right on trend and actually quite achievable within the next sort of 5 to 10 years, he says optimistically. So yeah, I think it's a really good time. There's lots of exciting things. So I'll probably move me on now, otherwise I'll carry on.
Well, I think positivity is good, but I am going to put not a a downer on it at all, but I think, despite lots of excitement and hope, we are clearly facing huge challenges as a global society. In your perspective and the work that you're seeing, what do you see that some of the biggest challenges that we currently face are?
Biggest challenge. The biggest challenge and risk, I think, is a bit like what I said earlier about returning to what it was like before. I think we want to try and avoid that. So the challenge is that we don't return to the ways of working that we were doing before COVID. That might be the easiest thing to do, is for businesses and governments to slip back to business as usual. So I think the challenge we have is in saying, no, this is a reset moment. We can go forward in a different way. We can see that COVID is affecting inequality. It's widening the gap. So that is still ultimately our biggest challenge, is to stop that inequality rising. I think the second challenge that we face is around our work in accounting for value, impact washing, greenwashing, SDG washing. There's such a risk at the moment that people are not taking this seriously, and we see nice reports all the time, but nothing really credible. And so for me, that's why assurance and accreditation is so important going forward. So those are the big challenges. And of course, burnout, those that are lucky enough to be working, we're all working relentlessly around the clock, and that's hard as well. So there's lots of challenges, but let's not go too far into that.
Well, the theme of this year's conference is leading our transition to a sustainable world, and we've chosen that theme because we do truly believe that social value, the work that we're doing, does provide a solution to help us transition to that sustainable world that we want to see, where we've overcome these challenges of inequality and climate change. So I know everyone's here to hear us talk about the social value principles in particular, but how do you think that the social value principles are going to help us provide the solution, overcome these challenges, be that transition that we need to see? How do they actually do that?
Well, I could definitely talk about this for a lot longer than we've got, so I'll be quick, because I think the principles are a fantastic framework for changing the way we make decisions. Principle 1 involves stakeholders, is all about talking to people, listening to people, and that in itself is challenging power structures and addressing that inequality that we see. So that's the first one. Principle 2 is about understanding the changes that really matter to people. We're talking about people's well-being. What is it that's changing in people's lives? And that's really important now. Principle 3 is about valuing what matters to people and understanding what's most important, so that we can choose between different options about how we create value, optimize value, if you like. Principle 4 about materiality. This is a raging debate at the moment about how do you draw the line about what's relevant and significant to include, and our position on materiality is about including what matters to all stakeholders, not just your business, but to people and the planet as well. So I think that's an important principle that everyone seems to be talking about at the moment. We've got principle number 5, which is all about how we understand our role in the system. What contribution is my organization playing in a systems? We live in a complex world where nothing happens in isolation. So understanding your contribution really helps sort of identify who we can partner with. SDG number 17, partnerships towards the goals. That's so important in this complex world that we live in. I think very, very briefly, principles 6 and 7 is about transparency and verification, which is about building trust and credibility. And I point again to this new principle number 8, which is all about how we responding and taking action and actually doing things differently. And so I think all together combined, they provide that amazing framework for a different culture within an organization and a different way to make decisions. So there you go, Becca. Does that answer your question? How are the principles the solution? Is that?
Yeah, that definitely does. Yeah, and then we've got 2 days of discussion at the conference later this year to deep dive into that in specific contexts. So please make sure you do come along to that. So we've got just a couple of minutes left on our agenda before we hand over to everyone in the session to ask questions. So please do pop any questions you have in the chat. But just my final question to you now, Ben, is, what top tip would you give to our audience members who might just be starting to think about social value, or are maybe trying to influence others to think about social value?
Top tip. Well, join SVI is the first recommendation. Join in international movement. There's networks forming in every country, and find like-minded people that you can learn from and share with, because this isn't easy. We all want to change the world, but you have to do that together. So yeah, join us, which is the shameless plug. And I think the tip is just start today. Like, it can feel daunting, but you just need to begin this journey of embedding those principles into your work, one step at a time, thinking about, what does principle 1 mean? How do we do that? And talk to your colleagues and your boss about what is social value. Have that very frank conversation, very, back to basics. What are we talking about here? And do we want to create more value for our stakeholders? And ask yourself that question. And if you do want to optimize value and create more value for stakeholders, start engaging with the principles, and one step at a time, build them into your work. And that's the great thing about the principles, because they are flexible and you can apply them in different ways. It's not hard and fixed rule. So yeah, hopefully that's simple top tips to get going, and see you at the conference in October.
Great, thank you so much, Ben. That was brilliant. Well, I can see there's the team in Thailand have been working super quick, because we've already got a question from the chat on this screen. So I'll just read it out, and just in case anybody can't see that. Right. But question from the chat said, the pandemic created a lot of travel restrictions for experts from Africa. This creates opportunities, for example, for our African colleagues on accounting for value, impact assessments, etc. What to do to provide them more possibilities to grasp those opportunities and position themselves as recognised professionals? So what can we do to support others grasp these opportunities and become recognised professionals?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and observation initially, that COVID has in some ways leveled the playing field. I mean, in some ways it's made things more equal, but you're right. We now have opportunities using online. We've all had to move online much more. So we're using technology to reach people, and maybe that's actually a good thing, because it's more inclusive, that more people can join conversations. Previously we'd had meetings in rooms and training in rooms, and therefore only people that can travel and get into those rooms are part of the conversation. But we've all now learned that through Zoom we can be part of conversations all over the world at any time. We can engage with people in different ways, so that is only a good thing, really. I mean, of course, we've got to be aware that there's still people that don't have internet access and can't access it still, so we can still go further. But I think that has helped, and I'm pleased to hear that this has had a good impact in the continent of Africa. Countries where there may have been more barriers for people to get involved in this work. I think that's great to hear. And the second part of the question, how can people interested in impact measurement in Africa be part of a profession? Well, SVI, Social Value International, has a professional pathway, and there is training online. There is an exam online now that's available, and you can become an SVI associate, an accredited practitioner. And I hope that there's more opportunities for people now to do that. And certainly, Becca, you and I have been very keen to provide more of those opportunities. I know that we're talking to some of our members across Africa about bringing, creating a network and making all these opportunities more available. So if you're interested and want to do more on that, do reach out to us. We really want to sort of create more opportunities.
Absolutely, and there's so many amazing people within our network, both within Africa, but also, Patrick, for example, on the call, who's here. I know he's done some fantastic work with organisations in Africa, and very much collaboration is so important to what we do. So really trying to encourage that, but certainly do take a look at the professional pathway that Social Value International has developed. There's some exciting updates coming out about the process about that. The accessibility is going to be enhanced on that as well. So over the next few months, do look at that, but certainly that is going to be a really great opportunity to gain that international recognition as an impact measurement and management practitioner. So there was another question just a little bit earlier on the chat. I'm just going to scroll up. Okay, so it says, Ben, interesting that you were talking about the younger generation who does care more about social and environmental impact of the organisations they're involved with. But they, such as students, are also feeling the limitations of the pandemic stronger. To what extent is Social Value International and the movement reaching out to them and getting them on board? And what more can we do to engage the younger generations?
Well, I like that, Patrick. It's a great question. I do feel like SVI should be doing more to tap into that younger generation. We could be doing more to work with universities, or we have a student membership package, but I think having partnerships with some other organizations that work with younger people who are passionate about these would be a good step forward. I'd encourage anyone who works in that space to get in touch, really. Yeah.
And an example of not Social Value International directly, but one of our partners and members actually in South Africa, Embedding Impact, they've developed a really great program, which is the Social Impact Management Graduate Program. So it's for individuals within South Africa, often from backgrounds that wouldn't normally be able to join the job market for various different reasons. They've been able to get them involved and train them up. Actually, many of them are becoming social value practitioners as well, which is fantastic. So that's a really great program and an example of bringing younger people into the profession. Particularly, they've had amazing results in terms of stakeholder engagement. And there was a webinar that we did a few months ago with Masacheba from Embedding Impact that is in the Social Value International members area. If anyone's a member, please do watch that. I'm happy to also share the link with anybody who would want to watch that. And another plug for the conference, but hopefully Masacheba will be joining us at the conference as well, so you can hear about that fantastic program that they have done. And I do know also they're very, very keen to help expand that program. If anybody's interested in doing something similar within their own organizations, they would definitely be really keen to share their knowledge with you as well. So let me know if you need any information on that. I will pop my email address in the chat so everyone's got it. So we've got another question from Gerald, which is, what is your vision on the subject of social value among SMEs?
So SMEs stands for small to medium enterprises, and the vision is exactly the same as any organization. I believe that regardless of your size, it's possible to implement the principles. I'm not so sure that I believe in the idea that small businesses haven't got the capacity to do this. I actually think that small businesses are very good at thinking about how they create value. They have to be, in order to survive, and they probably do quite a lot of this, but maybe haven't formalized the kind of accounting. So I think the principles are deliberately principles so that they can be applied proportionately. And I think it's probably a similar challenge whether you are a small or a large organization. And actually, large organizations whilst they may have like a team of people that can do it, changing the culture and the systems within a large organization is particularly challenging as well. So I think, and I hope that SMEs are able to be part of this movement as much as any other organization.
Definitely reminds me, Adam Richards, our Director of Impact, every time he ever delivers any training, his favourite phrase is enough precision for the decision. And I think that's something that's really important to consider. You know, the principles are not asking you to do huge, you know, pieces of £1 million work to measure your impact. It's about understanding the impact that you're creating on the scale in which you're creating it. It doesn't need to be huge, in-depth methodological studies that need to happen. It's really about applying the principles in the context. I don't know if there was any more questions. Please, if there is, you can feel free to pop them in the chat. Also, more than happy for you guys to take yourself off mute, put yourself, raise a hand, anything like that. We've got about just under 10 minutes left of this time, so it'd be really great to hear. Oh, great, another question from Patrick, thank you so much. So Patrick said, it would be important that programs in support of small enterprise development adopt and integrate more the social value principles. So should we work more on
that? Should we work more with SMEs? Yeah, we should probably. So programs that support SMEs, like incubators, maybe. It would be great to work more closely with that support network and break down, you know, the myths or the perceptions that may exist by SMEs about the challenges of, you know, impact management or social value accounting. I think we need to empower people to be confident. You know, like I said at the end, you know, my top tip is to just start somewhere, you know, start applying the principles, and, you know, record that, you know, how are you making decisions differently? What information are you using? And we do have some guides that are written for smaller social enterprises, you know, the guide, Maximize Your Impact Guide, written by Social Value UK, and the Turkish network is a really great resource, actually. And if we can use that and the Social Value Management Certificate, which is a kind of accreditation scheme that small organizations have definitely shown a willingness to go for, then that provides two sort of useful things that SMEs can use. But of course, we do more, and you know, that's why, as a network growing, I feel quite excited, because SVI want to facilitate all of these activities. It's not just down to us to create them, but if people have got an idea on how to implement the principles, you know, let's do it together. You know, we'll support that, and we just look for innovation across all of our networks.
Absolutely, we do. And I'm hoping very soon there'll be some really exciting work that we'll be able to share from some work that we're discussing at the moment in Vietnam with a university there that really helps create social entrepreneurs and startup businesses that are very much impact driven, and we're going to be working alongside them to help embed the principles of social value right from the very early stages, to embed that impact measurement and management. So really, really great things that are happening, and again, anybody who's interested in that and is working in that sphere, reach out to us, let us know, because we will absolutely support anybody that we can and drive forward that innovation. Is there any other questions? We've got about 5 minutes left of time. Again, please free to pop it in the chat. Unmute yourself. I'm sorry, I can't see if anybody in Facebook has any questions, but I think maybe the team, our colleagues in Thailand, are going to be monitoring that. But if you do have any questions on Facebook as well, please. I'm actually not the most technically savvy person and don't know how you ask questions on Facebook Live, because this is my first time on Facebook Live, but hopefully you can ask questions. So I'll just leave the space open for a couple of minutes, just in case anybody does.
I noticed, sorry, my internet dropped for a moment there, but Patrick's comment, you know, about, you know, there's this myth that you should earn a lot of money and then be a philanthropist and give back, and how could we challenge that? And yeah, I think we should challenge that. And a lot of the arguments at the moment, I think, is that if you are creating social value as well as profit, the two things will help you. You can be successful financially if you are good to people and you treat people well. That's your employees, your customers, the society that you work in. So I think another way to kind of encourage people to think about social value impact management is to say that if you want to be financially successful, treat people well, treat the environment good. It's a route to being a more successful business and organization. It's not two different choices, one or the other.
Absolutely. And I think the scale of the challenges that we're facing as a globe as well, when we look at climate change, when we look at inequality, it makes good business sense, because we have to protect the environment if we want to have successful business. If we want to operate as a business, we can't be doing that in an organization where, when there's no resources left because we've burnt all the resources in the ground and so on. So actually, for our own survival as businesses, we need to be thinking about things differently as well. We can't just continue as business as normal, because I think we've realized there is a finite point to so much of the energy and everything that's in this world. So it's important to do it. It's almost the choice of the point that there isn't a choice. Actually, we have to be thinking way beyond the way that we've done it before, because the implications are so severe. The screen that's come up is definitely my cue to wrap this discussion up for. Sorry, just put myself on mute. I'm not sure how I managed that one. I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining us today. It really has been wonderful to have this discussion, to see you all here. I really do hope that you're able to join us at the conference in October. It's on the 20th and 21st of October this year. And could you guys from Thailand put that screen up again with the QR code that people could then see how they can register? That would be absolutely brilliant. But I do hope to see all of you there. And thank you so much, Ben, for your insights today. It was really great to have that discussion with you. And thank you to everybody for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Becca. Speak soon.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Becca, for a very great conversation. So excited to October, it's coming October. Thank you so much, and looking forward to next episode of the Social Value Community to join us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Bo.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Becca.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.